Welcome to the 24-hour preliminary round of CoMIS 2023. My name is Adam. Today's presentation will be judged by our panel of judges in front of you. You will have 25 minutes in total, 15 minutes of protected presentation time, and 10 minutes of Q&A. During the protected presentation time, judges are not permitted to interject and ask questions. If you finish your presentation before 15 minutes end, you will still only have 10 minutes for Q&A. There will be a hard cut at 15 minutes, and I will be giving you time warnings 3, 1, and 30 seconds. All right, I'll give you the.
He's getting good at that.
Yeah. Hope so. All right, you guys are good to go.
Good morning, Life Floor. My name is Sam.
My name is Ria.
And I'm Ritvik.
We're Future Consulting, and we're here to help streamline your pricing quoting strategy. Starting off, you guys are in a really enviable position and have a lot of things going your way. You guys have had 35% annual revenue growth steadily since 2013 and have had 40% growth in the last couple of years and have reached 7 million and are projected to reach 7 million in revenue this year. We also have 360 current open opportunities for you, and once you start a project with a client, you close it at 85% rate. There are also some concerns that we see with your guys' current processes, and that comes with your sales manager and your design team. There's way too much manually inputting of data into your current tech infrastructure using sheets that causes data redundancy, data input errors, and just overall a lot of wasted time that could be spent doing other things. So the core question we are here to answer is, what tech strategy can improve the life of your employees and help you become efficient to capture future revenue growth? We're going to recommend a 3-pronged strategy that starts with reorienting your pricing and quoting strategy to optimize current efficiency and automate a lot of your current systems to eliminate the need for manual input of data. The second part of that is integrating this software all across your processes for that each of your employees along the process line will be able to use. And lastly, we want to leverage this technology to ensure capture of future revenue growth opportunities moving forward. What this software will look like is pretty similar to your current processes, but eliminates a few steps along the way. First, the sales team is going to submit the opportunity into the software. The design team is then going to be able to read that and submit their design. And the software is going to be able to create to count the tiles and create a quote automatically, eliminating the need for manual counting and manual input into spreadsheets. And shared services will also have access to that in order to add fees and review options before the quote is made. The software that is going to be able to do that for us is AutoCAD enabled CPQ. AutoCAD enabled CPQ utilizes your current AutoCAD software that your design team is using. You guys have been doing a very wonderful job of creating designs that clients like, and with a lot of customizability and options for them to tweak moving throughout the process. We want to leverage this and combine it with CPQ, which is configure, price, and quoting. The configurations from AutoCAD will be included in the AutoCAD enabled CPQ interface and will allow designers to go right into the AutoCAD enabled CPQ and to enter things that will automatically generate a price and eventually a quote. This will eliminate the need completely for Adobe Illustrator for manually counting the tiles and tedious work hours spent that are dragging tiles and manually counting them. Additionally, the sales team will be able to view live quote generations, which will help them in their interactions with clients. Lastly, as I said earlier, the work of Adobe Illustrator becomes completely obsolete, and this is a packaged software that will combine with NetSuite. There are a lot of success stories that have used AutoCAD enabled CPQ, such as a company called Role Model Software. Role Model Software has created a product called using Lightning CAD that has been used in really similar industries, such as deck creating. There's a company called Dex.com that has had so much success using this. Essentially, they'll upload into the interface with the AutoCAD what they want their deck to look like and the prices that they have for each material. And this software will tell them how much of each piece and how much it costs to automatically generate a quote. This process is also super user-friendly and requires little to no learning curve for each employee to use along the process line. This is going to reduce lead time overall for customers and will allow us to take in more orders and capitalize the future revenue opportunities. Moving into how this is going to be integrated is Rhea.
Yes, so now let's talk a little bit about what this actually looks like for your workflow and what next steps we'd be taking. So as we know right now, our current pricing workflow consists of 4 main people. The first one of these is our sales manager. And looking at his biggest pain point right now, it's really having to communicate with the customer on a pretty slow level. And what that means is having to go back and forth to get new quotes every time a new design is recommended or suggested. Now let's look at our next person. Our next player is actually going to be our design team. And with our design team, the biggest issue that comes out is A, having to recreate these designs for each quote that's made, and then also B, having to go in and manually count, manually input into a spreadsheet, which can obviously be very inefficient. Moving on to our third player, that's our installation team. And so our installation partners, again, have to go in and count these quotes and count these tiles. And so that's pretty frustrating for them as well. And finally, moving on to our last people, that's our shared services team. And with our shared services team, again, a similar pain point comes in where they have to go in and manually enter all this data into NetSuite. And so what we can see as kind of a common theme among pain points is that design is a really big issue right now because you have to kind of go in and remake each of those designs. But also another really big issue is manual entry, which can be really frustrating to all these employees. But let's talk about what our CPQ can do to really alleviate some of these points. So starting off with our newly reconstructed workflow, we have our sales manager who now will no longer have to go back and forth and communicate to the design team because they'll be able to see live quotes a lot faster and really have that all consolidated in one place. Moving on to our design team, some of the main benefits that they get out of the system is that they no longer have to really go back and recreate a design for each quote, but instead that's all kind of consolidated and can be really edited more flexibly. But furthermore, they also don't really have to count each tile anymore, and that's all automated now. So that can also really help with the process and making it a lot faster. Now moving on to our installer partner, kind of looking into this pricing process, they really are no longer needed here anymore. And so the main benefit is that they're just going to be your installer partner now, no longer needed for the pricing part. And finally, moving on to shared services. Once again, everything is going to be a lot more automated and integrated more efficiently into NetSuite. And so they no longer need to sit there and count each tile. So overall, what we can see with this is that communication is going to be a lot more efficient. But furthermore, we're going to reduce a lot of the manual issues that we've had in the past. And finally, we're going to make sure that designs are just a lot more efficient for our customers. But now let's move on to what this means for the company. Obviously, with all this efficiency, we're going to have a lot more time and a lot more room to kind of grow and look into the next steps for our company. And so one thing that we want to do is talk about where LifeFloor currently has space to grow. So one of the things that was discussed is that LifeFloor actually has a lot of their fastest and most cost conscious efforts really focused on the renovation side of things and working with kind of pre-made patterns and things like that. And so we really encourage you guys to kind of look into the current industries you have right now. And after doing some research, one industry that we noticed out of your 6 industries is the parks and recreation industry. Doing a little bit more research into that, the parks and recreation industry is currently valued at $4.5 billion and expected to grow over 9% in CAGR over the next few years, as you can see. So with that, we have a recommendation that this could be a really great growth opportunity for you. And so kind of looking at some of our growth potential here, what we mean by that is that because the outdoor playground area is obviously very similar in the types of materials it needs, whether that be, for play spaces and, things where we're going to need a lot of traction on the floor, things like that. There's a lot of really similar materials that can be used here. But furthermore, there's also going to be a lot of similar kind of regulations and things like that that fall into the tiles for this. And so we kind of see this as a really great way for LifeFloor to move towards revenue growth in the future and kind of a next step for them. And so let's talk about some of the initiatives that we would take here. One of the things that we could do is kind of working with the current partners that you already have. And we've noticed that there's a lot of really cool partners right now in the amusement park space that in addition to having aquatics, also have, playground type facilities, things like that. But we also noticed that you have a lot of parks and recreation right now that you could also maybe reach out to and see if they have any kind of need in that space. Another thing that we talked about is really focusing on your pillar of inclusivity initiatives. And with that, one thing that we thought is, looking at low income areas and just areas that could use renovation and focusing on that. And finally, another thing that we'd want to do is really make sure that we have a lot of more easy to build playground designs, things like that, that would be easy for our designers and for your team to kind of take those next steps. Now, what would this mean in terms of benefits? In terms of benefits, kind of the first thing that we're looking at, as you can see, is that there's a lot more industry diversification. Moving just from the aquatics industry into something very similar can be very feasibly done, but also really continue to make sure that you have a lot of open options. Furthermore, I think that this is a really great safety net in case due to market conditions or anything, there might be any issues in the future. So this is a really great entryway to a lot more options. And then finally, kind of looking at it, this is just a really great way to enter a new market that's very similar, and again, a great next step for growth. But now let's talk a little bit about implementation of our overall recommendation.
So we suggest implementing this new CPQ software in a 3-stage process. So the first stage would be research, and it would be dedicated in 1 quarter, which would involve researching the developer that can develop the custom software for us, gathering user requirements, and also consolidating the project data that we have had in the past to create that software that we want. Next up, most of the time will be spent on developing the new software, which will go through an iterative process and involve a lot of user feedback to ensure that the features that the user want are really present in the software and are providing accurate results that can help us provide accurate codes at the end. Lastly, there will also be a training program at the end after the software is fully developed and tested, so that our employees can fully leverage the capabilities of this new software. And at the end, we'll try to maintain the new software to ensure that any new changes we make to the business is incorporated in the software as well. Now, looking at the financials of your company, you guys have had pretty solid growth over the past few years. Last year, you had a growth of 40% year over year. And if we predict that the growth is going to be keep up with the same numbers, we predict a revenue of $19.2 million in 2026. Now, with all that growth, you don't have the office capacity right now to go over $10 million in revenue. This is where our CAD-enabled CPQ will come in and help free up that office employees' time to ensure that the manufacturing capabilities that you are building are fully utilized, and that can help you gain the $12.9 million that you might lose if you don't implement this new software. Looking at some of the risks, these are some of the risks we have identified which are eminent to your business with implementing this new CAD software. These risks are divided into acceptance, effectiveness of the software, and the growth potential. So some of the major risks would be, what if the employees do not accept this new software because of previous failed attempts of using a different software? We aim to mitigate this risk by explaining to the users that this is a really good software and showing them how this will really help to reduce the time they spend on manually doing stuff, and showing that how this could be really beneficial for the company. Another major risk that we foresee is the new CPQ software being inefficient and not being able to accurately count the tiles that the designer can. Now, this can be done. This can be mitigated by having a good development process and trying to set in different constraints and testing different constraints to ensure that the accuracy of the tile counting is matched by the software and the designer.
Wrapping things up here, we're confident we've provided you guys with a really good solution to secure future revenue growth potential. You guys have done a really good job in the past of securing your revenue opportunities, and by implementing AutoCAD-enabled CPQ, we're eliminating the need for manual data entry and counting, which is going to free up so much time throughout all of your employees along the process line in order to take up more orders and reduce your lead time to capture that revenue in the future. Secondly, we've addressed a narrowly focused business model that can expand into the playground industry, so that if there were future economic downturns in the aquatic industry, that we would protect our future growth options. Thank you all so much.
Okay, so your protected presentation time has ended. Judges, you will have 10 minutes to ask questions starting now.
I'm confused. It happens a lot. What exactly are we developing in terms of software, and who's doing the development?
So there's a company. Can you go to the recommendations?
Just click on one of the slides.
Okay, so There's a company called Role Model Software, and this is an example of a company who can do this for us. And this is gonna automate our design process so that they don't have to manually go and count the tiles to input them into a quote so that the customer can see the quote and figure out if the pricing is right or if there's adjustments to make. They don't have to keep restarting the project and make sure that there'll be no more manually counting. The software will be able to look at a design and figure out how to split it up and get the pricing together so that the quote is automatically generated with what each material is needed, with each one is custom cut or not, and how much it'll cost.
And that all has to be developed, and you're recommending that role model software is the developer.
Correct.
At what cost?
Yeah, so we looked at the development cost of mid-size of software for mid-size companies, and we saw that the development cost for those companies is around $100,000 to $200,000. And we estimate this project to be being on the higher side, so we estimated $200,000 for the development. And then we also estimated around $20,000 each year for maintaining and upgrading the software.
You didn't speak to it, but is the assumption that that custom software would then integrate with NetSuite?
Correct. Yes.
Does role model software have experience in integrating with CRM, specifically NetSuite?
Yes. You go to this is something that the process would look like with the CPQ integrating with the AutoCAD enabled CPQ integrating with NetSuite. It simply serves as like an interface. It's built on top of NetSuite. So this is the interface that they're going to design on and that they're going to be accessing from now. And NetSuite serves as like the back end of it that's going to be able to produce the client solutions document.
We're thinking.
What gives you the three-dimensional inventory? Is that the CPQ? That's not the CPQ. Is that the software? Is that the AutoCAD? Does it need to be programmed? Elaborate that a little bit on that.
So we can show you a couple of mockups that we designed based on previous work that role model software has done and the software that they have created. So this is basically a mockup of the design view inside the AutoCAD enabled CPQ that we are envisioning, where the designer can select the kind of tile they want to use. That tile will show up over at the bottom at the end, and then they can just drag and drop the tile over the CAD enabled design platform, and that will the number of tiles they put on the CAD platform will be automatically counted as they keep on putting more tiles.
So then you have the demand, but you don't have the inventory yet, right? The inventory, you have the demand for the tiles. Okay.
And then this can directly be created into a code, which can then go feed into the manufacturing facility to create the tiles that are
Sure.
needed.
Thank you.
What's the annual maintenance cost on this software?
So we don't have a licensing fees for this software, but there will be estimating an average of 10% of the development cost. We estimate 20,000 to be the annual maintenance cost for the software.
So the software is bought, if you're to go with role model, the software is bought outright from them and there's no licensing fees or maintenance fees coming from them. It would just be the fees of continuously configuring it to make sure that the numbers are accurate to what is actually needed. in
And they would do the
project.
configuring?
No, us along with the install partners would help to make sure that the numbers are accurate. So part of it would be reaching out with install partners, since they're not gonna be doing the counting anymore, to see how accurate our numbers are and getting feedback from them. So if the numbers are like too high, need to reconfigure, and it's very customizable and like user-friendly to make adjustments in as well.
What about support for this after, like say the salesperson or somebody needs support, truly, how is that?
So role model software on their website said that they have a pretty good support system, and even post sales, if you have an issue with the software, they will definitely help you make the changes that you need. So their design team is continuously helping the company to make the changes according to their evolving needs of the business. So it might cost the company a little bit to make those changes, but that's the 20,000 we are estimating for the maintenance cost of the software.
What are some of the alternatives you looked at to role model software?
There are a lot of other vendors that we found on Gartner that offer custom-made CPQs that have CAD capabilities for advanced manufacturing, such as like SAP, Oracle, Salesforce CPQ can offer products like this or off services like this that may not be as customizable as something like Salesforce or like role model, but are really solid alternatives.
I don't see role model on here. Are they, is there a parent company or?
So the role model is a pretty small company of just 30 employees, and they're really specialized in like platforms built on top of AutoCAD.
What's the training time on the software?
So the development of this new software, the software will be developed according to the user needs, so it will be really user friendly. It won't have a lot of difficult use case features like AutoCAD. If a employee has to use AutoCAD, they need to go through proper training before using AutoCAD. But this will be a drag and drop feature which can be trained to the employees really quickly. So the training time we estimate to be 3 months to ensure everyone is up to speed with all the features of the new software.
And what ongoing training facilities are there? Because as we grow, we're gonna need to hire people.
Mhm.
There's no ongoing training facilities that are used for this. The company could provide it remotely or whatnot, but the main thing about this solution that we have is that it's super easy to use and very customizable for all the employees.
How will this change your production? I mean, you talked about the demand that I get. Are you changing your production like the 24-inch sheet, or what do you keep stable?
So we looked at a few codes that LifeFloor had provided us, and they had pretty specific measurements for each kind of tiles that they were using. So we suggest putting in the measurements of each kind of tiles that they currently have, that they're currently manufacturing inside the AutoCAD enabled CPQ. And then once they are like designing the custom built design, they can just drag that design onto AutoCAD. And because of AutoCAD's geometric capabilities, it will specifically measure out that part of the area which will be covered by single tile. So we don't expect to create new sizes of tiles.
If I'm the CEO, right? You go back to your implementation time. The good thing is that I think it's realistic. What worries me is that you develop a year. Right?
Yeah. It's just that we want to make sure that this manual counting process is so delicate and so intricate that we test the software according to numerous constraints to get the most accurate results and the most accurate price codes. As you can see, the most of the second half of the year is spent on testing along with development. That's where we are focusing a lot on why we have the 1-year development timeline, because we want to test the product before we make sure that it can provide us with the accurate results we want.
Additionally, we see this lining up closely with hopefully with the new manufacturing plant, that this lines up, that this is ready to go by the time we have new laborers to enable more generation on the manufacturing side of things.
Over what timeline am I going after the growth, right? Because this is all implementation of the software. What's your suggestion then on how that overlaps with the growth, the timeline for growth?
So with what this is going to accomplish for us is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much for your time.
Thank you. All right, so you guys will actually stay in here since we're gonna do the feedback session, and then all the other teams will join us. So, yeah. Judges will do feedback in this room. I'll take your flash drive.